Every one of these little farms had from 50 to 100 sows out in the field back in the late 50s and 60s. There were hog-tied fences all along both sides of the road here. And it was just covered with hay houses in the rolling hills. There was hundreds of pork producers. Yes, I'd say at least one operation every mile. Yeah, big operation, you'd see, yes. And now, of course, it's all literally 100% corn and soybeans. Nobody has livestock. Let's go to the museum first, we thought. Look, there's a guy painting the A house today. Now that looks different than any house you've ever seen. I'm Ralph Vinson from Oneida. I was a pig vet in the old days. Yeah. My name is Ralph Vinson. Both of my folks were brought up in farms in western Kansas, and so from the time I was 6 years old, I spent the whole summer with my aunt, my father's sister, on their farm. So I loved the farm and wanted to be a wheat farmer, and unfortunately, I had asthma, and the wheat really choked me up. But I just loved it anyhow. Used to work in the harvest field, choked with asthma, and would spray myself occasionally. But I think by the time I was in 6th or 7th grade, I was figuring out I'm not going to be a wheat farmer. Well, the local veterinarian came out, and I enjoyed watching him, so I rode around with him a little. My cousin went to Kansas State University, and vet school, and that's how I became interested in veterinary medicine. I went to veterinary school at the University of Illinois, 6 years out of high school, graduated from high school in '51, University of Illinois in 1957. This is our class of 33 members, including 2 wonderful girls. Quite a few of them dead now. A few of them were veterans, but not many. But we had 33 in our class, and we really were like brothers and sisters, the whole 33, like being in a small high school. And it was a great fun, and I think we did very well. When I graduated, I moved to Knox County, which is where we're sitting right now, and Victoria, Illinois. A drug salesman had recommended that place. It's quite a hog area, and actually grossed $587 the very first month. So I was off to a running start. Okay, in Victoria, Illinois, I was in a general practice. I intended to do small animals and everything, so the very first people I took care of, I clipped their dog or bathe them, give them rabies shots. The first pig client I had was just a week or so after I'd been in practice, and I went out to vaccinate about 200 head of pigs. Of course, you know, I said it grossed only $587. Well, that was $200 of it. And so swine probably provided 80% of my income, but probably only 30% of my time. Because at that time, we got the tremendous revenue from vaccinating pigs, and everything else we did was very, very cheap. Of course, the idea then was really to be kind to your swine clients. And also, that got me very interested in swine. It was very primitive when you think of it. And we didn't know anything about mycoplasma pneumonia. We didn't know anything about SPF pigs. We didn't know anything about neonatal colibacillosis. We didn't know, of course, pseudorabies. We all knew what pseudorabies was. That's when animals act like they have rabies and they don't have rabies. Little did we know what effects those things would have on us in later life. But in 1957 until about 1965, swine medicine was very primitive, as you can see by my answer. And if you can imagine, in the 60s, we were trying to modernize. Iron shots came in. I would crawl in one of these A houses. We'd shut the door so the sow couldn't get at us, and we'd clip the needle teeth and give iron shots and castrate them. So we were trying to process pig. We were trying to modernize the A house operation. And of course the sows they're all yelling at us, and when those pigs are squealing, you know, they're coming on us. And I had a client that could, his son could make a sound just like a squealing pig. And he'd make that sound, and sows would come from about 50 yards away to attack us. And but anyhow, I think it's important when you think about being a swine veterinarian, that this is how we started out. And here in Henry County, was really the center of hog production, probably in Iowa and Illinois both. These houses had to be lugged around. You had to walk deep mud to do the chores, because all these things had to be bedded with a bale of straw when it was wet. And of course, in the summer, they tried to farrow in summertime, and you had to come out and pour buckets of water on the sows to keep them cool. And it wasn't unusual for a guy to lose 10 or 20 sows in July from the heat. Many of these guys had hay houses for summertime, and then they farrowed in inside sheds in the wintertime. Well, I suppose these sows were probably having 10 pigs, and we're saving 6 of them anyhow. 6 or 7. I don't know, some guys with good management could have a 9-pig average in the field. Not very often, though. And of course, as time went on and people got college educated, they weren't going to do this kind of work anymore. We thought we were more progressive, but these guys bought a lot of farms, made money in hogs, raised them this way. It started to change about as early as 1963, when hogs suddenly hit $25 per hundredweight instead of the usual $15 to $20. So now there was real big money in raising pigs. So producers were trying to figure out how they could raise more pigs. And the old timers here in Illinois of Russ Jekyll and George Brower and Willard Korsmeyer, those were the first guys that went into huge, big time 300 to 500 sow operations in confinement. Remember, a very important thing, we were eradicating hog cholera. How on earth we were going to make a living without hog cholera vaccination? Well, fortunately, the going into confinement was very good for me because nobody knew what they were doing, and we could learn, kind of stay ahead a little bit of the curve and learn how to rear pigs in confinement. But I think we developed a lot of techniques and things simple things like we didn't realize you had to cut tails off. The pigs might bite tails in confinement. We'd never done that before. But finally, I'd say about 1965, we started having some farrowing houses and discovering what ventilation is needed. I remember our first confinement farrowing houses were flat concrete. We didn't use any bedding. We used heat lamps to warm them. Of course, now we introduced Scours 101 once we came into confinement. And of course, the early confinement rearing units smelled terrible. I mean, you just choked you to go into a place, but we got used to that. And so your car and your clothes and everything smelled terribly. But that's the evolution to swine confinement rearing was the lifesaver for the veterinarian that wanted to work with swine when hog cholera vaccination just disappeared. In 1971, I became a farm animal only veterinarian, and in 1975, I became pigs only veterinarian. Then, of course, I want to emphasize Dale McKee. He kind of partnershiped with me. In fact, we did have a partnership in a couple businesses, but I really could learn what we thought was the way to raise pigs in confinement. Then as time went on, we would talk about scours, and we talk about swine dysentery, and we talk about getting rid of lice and mange, and then of course, I haven't said much about swine nutrition, helping people develop their corn, soy diets. Mike Tokach, when they first started doing nutritional experiments with young, weaned, healthy pigs, those darn things would gain over a pound a day. Whoever thought that a 20-pound going from 20 to 100 in 80 days? We never realized pigs would grow. We never had pigs that did like that. Well, if you could get an operation going smoothly, you found out, hogs can really grow. If they don't have disease, they are your friend. And nobody was harder on me than Dale McKee. We're like coaches. In order for the team to be successful, if you win, it's a lot easier. Nothing like the record to show what the pigs produce per sow year, or how fast the pigs are gaining, or how high the mortality rate is, or how much money we're spending on treatment and vaccination, all those kind of things, where we were getting pretty sophisticated records, and we knew what we're doing. Well, I said Kent Kissingberry and his partner, Rod Johnson, were doing that type of thing. Tim Lola was starting to do that, and we were becoming consultants. We actually, the big change, we went to the farm, evaluated things, usually with our dictaphone or something, and wrote a report. Nowadays, of course, I'd say everybody in the AASV is more or less is connected with some type of consulting. Yes, what strategies do you use to help people, to counsel people into doing a better job, or to try to get something done? That's a challenge. That's the major challenge of a veterinarian. Well, first of all, if you're going to try to get something for somebody to do, you got to make sure it's effective, and what you're telling them to do is actually useful. So that's the number one thing. The second thing is realize that the bottom worker on the swine unit is just as important as the CEO or the swine owner. In fact, more important as far as pig production. You've got to become friends, more like teachers, I'd say. You got to kind of have a little discipline, but you want to be friends with these, and so this guy will do a good job of washing out the farrowing house. He realizes that his job, if his job isn't done properly, it's going to wreck the whole thing. So you get everybody as a team, working as a team, and I was a friend of the workers. In fact, if there was battles with the owner, I was kind of like a union negotiator with the employees versus the owner, especially when pigs were low price. The owner would bear down on his employees and holler at them all the time. And I would say, whatever their name was, now's the time you really need a team effort. These guys have to help you, so don't be hard on them. So motivation is probably the most important thing that a consultant has. And as a youngster, I'd always wanted to learn how to fly. Well, so Sterling and Celine and I went along that trip together, a hog farmer, and we both decided to take lessons. Well, I really liked it a lot, and as far as using it in my business, I just kind of stumbled into it. I learned to fly in the spring of 1975. I had to accumulate 200 hours in order to get an instrument rating, and I sure wanted to do that. And so by October I had my instrument rating, and of course in doing all this flying I went to every pig meeting there was, and by that time, actually around 1967, I had found out it's fun to give swine talks. And so I started doing that with every opportunity I could, and of course traveling around. That summer I was at a lot of places, so I went to a lot of meetings and I gave a lot of talks that summer. So by October I could fly. Then Dale McKee started talking to his people, not because I was a flyer, but just kind of worked out that at the time I was ready to expand beyond the boundaries of Knox County, that the flying worked with that perfectly. Then by the year or so I bought a real safe plane, a 6-passenger Cessna 210, which was for a single flyer. I could go into some terrifically bad weather conditions fairly safely. It really made me easy access for meetings. There was the expense of flying there. The people paid miraculously. And I know many nights I came home late at night from some visit, maybe a couple hundred miles away, and I'd say, how lucky am I to be able to fly to work? And actually the clients paid for it, and I think we did a good job of those times, of setting up a swine consulting practice that actually had its basis on flying. And then Dale McKee, who happened to be president of the Illinois State Pork Producers, would tell his friends on the pork board, oh, Ralph is really effective. He just does this, he does that. And I learned how to fly in 1975, so I could go quite far away to one of Dale's friends and call on him. So it developed an airplane consulting business, which certainly is a lot of fun. And I think we were heroes on the farm. There's so many things we could do for them. I don't know, there came along a mystery. I started losing some pigs, or getting some abortions. Anyhow, up in Minnesota, they were starting to have the same thing. And it took 2 or 3 years to discover that we actually had a virus that was causing that problem. And then the rest is history. My 10 years, last 10 years, PRRS was a pretty miserable thing to try to deal with. Nobody feels worse when a group of pigs break with a very serious disease than the actual workers that are on the line. Not because they have to work more, they feel like what they're doing is useless. And that's what something like PERS can do, make you feel like a useless individual. At that time, I could say I was operating as an independent consultant. I quit flying because it was getting too expensive. I drove too many units, and I was saying, this is becoming overwhelming. There's things you could do 24 hours a day. I would have to radically change the way I do things. Now's the time to get out. 5 to 10 years before that, I never would have believed it, but I'd heard people say, you'll know when to retire. And there isn't any certain age, it's when you feel like retiring. Six years on the Elanco Health Board. It was fun to be connected to industry to Eli Lilly and got to some real nice trips down to South America through that. This was a thing that was coveted. I was Swine Practitioner of the Year in 1980. That was a great honor, and I think I gave a talk on that a couple of years ago. You know who appreciates this most is your mom. If you get an award like that, they know you're a success. So I was president of Swine Practitioners in '78, I see. That's what that is. Oh yes, Leroy Beal's Executive Veterinary Program. That was such a great experience. Actually, I went into that in 1991, getting to be a pretty old veterinarian. Well, Roy Schultz and I were in the first class of EVP, and it was just a tremendous, enjoyable experience. Even at an old age, we learned a lot there. This is an award I got for being on the school board for 12 years. And this is Illinois Pork Producers gave me a Spotlight Award back in 1995. They kind of tell me to retire, see, 2 or 3 years earlier. Oh, Knox County, another award from Knox County. Well, that's basically all my veterinarian awards. Okay, let's give a little update, especially to you old guys out there, of what a guy does 16 years after retiring. Of course, you're 65 and retired in 16 years, you must be very close to 80. So here you got an 80-year-old guy. What does he do during the day? And I spend an hour 3 times a week going down to the hospital and exercising in the gym. Now, so that's one thing. And then I spend another hour a day walking 3 or 4 miles a day. And then I spend another couple hours a day in the coffee shop. Of course, here I've got a new wife of 4 years now, and she puts me to work around the house here. But I do enjoy, I keep up a little bit with what's going on in the swine business. I talk to Joe Connor quite often. I get the AASV newsletter, and I see the frustrations they're having today. I talk to the mash shops once in a while to see what's going there and if they need any advice as to what to do next. So you see, but if you take an hour's nap, you've about wiped out a day. Okay, what advice would I have for a young veterinarian today is take advantage of dumb luck. But sometime along the way, you're going to meet somebody that's really a good person to be a friend with, or you're going to fall into something. Well, take advantage of it, we'll recognize it early, and my dumb luck was meeting great people in the industry. Is just do the best job you can do scientifically and be personable and be a salesman, but that'll only take you so far. So you got to be alert and you got to like what you're doing, and the same old things that applied 100 years ago. What did AASV mean to my career? It meant everything. It was one of the dumb luck things.